Welcome in. It's a Clippers Talk Live. I'm Adam Osland. Obviously, I'm in a different setting, an undisclosed location. Let's just say it's a park somewhere near my house in Burbank, as I'm trying something else out. Because as you may know, in the saga at my apartment building, where I've been doing less and less Clippers Talks after dark, well, the reason for that is I'm too loud, and I've gotten a couple of complaints. Well, I do blame you guys, the Adams family, a little bit for this. It's mostly on me being a loudmouth and not having my room well insulated with enough uh, carpet, bookshelves, things that would keep the sound in. And overall, the apartment building is it's brick. So it makes things very difficult. The sound travels a little bit too well. It's kind of like Into a Dome in that way, except Into a Dome was built for that, and it's a positive. At the apartment building, it's actually a negative. Appreciate you guys getting in here. How is the sound? As I'm just doing this off the hotspot from my phone here on the laptop. 3 dozens in here. The Adams family's back. The name is setting in now. It's starting to suit me. It feels right. Holo Dolo said, "This man is streaming on the road. Respect." I'm not moving. I'm in a parked vehicle at a park in Burbank near my house, as I'm just trying to see if I wanted to do some shows from the car and I didn't want to have to drive into work to do them, or if somebody else was using the studio. Is this an option? JMI 1324 said, "Live from the car is dedication." Appreciate you, my guy. I'm trying to make this work. And I think I got an interesting episode to myself and La Murray were discussing yesterday with Kawhi Leonard, who looks to be getting closer. Nothing is official yet. We're just reading the tea leaves and trying to connect dots. Last night, Chuck Mockler and I did a Clips and Dip episode. That was a good time. We discussed a little bit further what this means for the Clippers. I'm a little bit gassed. I just ran 10 miles at the gym. And I'm also annoyed that I just red zit on my nose. It's like, come on. This is like the worst place possible to get one. Phone sauce said, "Double A got that dog in him." I do, but I'm a little bit tired. It's not a sponsor of the episode or anything. The Ghost, Red Berry, Sour Patch Kids energy drinks, which I think has 200 milligrams of caffeine in it, which is about 2 cups of coffee. As I'm just trying to wake up a little bit here, even though I already ran 10 effing miles. For some reason, I'm just dragging today. So I apologize, guys. 3 dozen said, "We can dig at him." Okay. I'm wondering if this is going to work or not. It's pretty convenient. I like my car, and I like this park, and it's really close to my house. And as long as the internet connection is good enough, my laptop has enough juice, it's very possible that I could be doing more of these in the future here. So thank you, T-Mobile. The network is with me. Holo Dolo said, "The Kawhi news got me so excited, man. I understand nothing is set in stone, but we had 0 news till now. That means there is 100% validity to this news. I'm hyped." I don't know about 100%. Co said, "Video a little sketchy, but good news. You can't really see anything on your nose." The video's a little sketchy, guys. Video is better now. Maybe it was on your end. How's the video look for everybody else? Because it does say I'm getting a very strong signal here off the hotspot on my phone, as I'm trying to see if this is a suitable enough way to do a vodcast. How you guys doing? The rest of you in here. I appreciate everyone. We're going to talk about Kawhi Leonard, what it means for the Clippers in a hypothetical sense, because we don't know how he's going to look when he returns, but I'm going to throw this out there. If Kawhi looks relatively the same as he did last season before the injury, and I think that's possible because there was no structural damage, where does this Clippers team stack up in the Western Conference? 3 Dozen said, a little grainy for me. Holodolo said, it's been good for the most part, but gets a bit glitchy at times. Overall, it's good. Okay, afterwards, I'll review the film myself once it's on YouTube. The new 7 ABC van is pulling up. Now they're making a U-turn. See, things can get interesting. I have seen people parked in this undisclosed location near a park in Burbank before. And I'm not saying there were drug deals going down, but there was some sketchy stuff. JMI 1324 says top 4 in the West with Kawhi. As long as the sound is good, let me know on that. Give me feedback on the sound quality here, guys. Is the sound okay? Because I was thinking actually it might not be too bad because it's pretty contained within the car. So it's not going to escape. Does the sound make up for the glitchiness with video? Bori said the claw puts fear in hearts. Nick Ramos said no days off for the GOAT and the Addams family. Sound is good. Okay. Nick Ramos said this is journalism, real journalism. How about this, guys? Coming up tomorrow on the show, I told you we're going to have a special guest on Saturday. We got, should I give this out? You know what? I'm going to tease it till the end of the show. I'm going to tease it at the end of the show here to keep you guys with me. Elite sound. Sound is fine. Our guy MKXLNT's in here. 3 Dozen's in here. Sound is crisp, as it normally is. Good. That's more important than anything else. You guys don't necessarily need to see me or the big red zit on my nose because 'tis the season. Rudolph the red-nosed reindeer. Holodillo said, Kawhi adds the mid-range game this team is lacking a lot. Spaces the floor even more for James and Norm. Opens up DJ even more for wide-open shots. He is what the doctor ordered. Completely agree with you. So I want to go through the contenders in the Western Conference and talk about where this Clippers team, and I guess how this Clippers team could match up against the teams that we consider to be contenders in the West. How do you guys feel about that? Because after the news coming out yesterday, I just want to continue the positive stuff here with Kawhi Leonard and be hopeful and be encouraged. Because I said it last night on Clips and Dip, but the good news is, at least, at worst, even though nothing has been substantiated, we don't know the time when he could be back official yet. At worst, the rumors are positive this time around, rather than with the Chinese publicist and a negative rumor that was floating out there. What, back in, was that late August, early September? 3 Dozen said Adam is in his K5 transformer. How does 3 Dozen know I'm in a K5? Have I mentioned that before? GT, by the way, not GT line. I had a special order of this from Florida. 290 turbocharged with the horsepower. The real Mikkel said Clippers is 7-8 in the West the whole year, 7 through 8. I'm not saying where they're going to end up in the Western Conference standings. I'm saying against these teams that we consider contenders to come out the West, how did the Clippers stack up in a playoff series? That's very different. Should Kawhi look like he did last season? That's the hope. Art 8 says, we definitely a top 3 seed with a healthy Kawhi. No team is scary for the Clippers. M7MD Boys said, yo, Adam, what it do, baby? I got beef with M7MD Boy. I feel like he stole something I said on Twitter and then used it on the Clips and Dip Live the other night when the Clippers were playing Portland. And I pointed out how in the first quarter I said, Norman Powell saw Paul George get 29 tonight and said, bet. And then by the end of the game, Powell had 30 compared to PG's 29. And I thought I saw M7MD Boys say that on the Clips and Dip Live post game. You know who had it first. I got the receipts. Holo Dolo said, we didn't have any idea how long this would take. Guys like Law and other beat writers estimated December, January at the start. The estimations from them matching the rumors are a great sign. Yeah, but to be fair, Law first said early November, not from the start. He didn't say December, January from the start. Nobody said December, January from the start. They said relatively soon. Check the tape. It's in the live section. I talked to Law like 2 days before the season started. So nobody has known. Nobody can know. It's Kawhi. Yawning Tears said, Adam, I forgot what you said last night, but it gave me an epiphany about a synergy of Intuit. The team can play crazy aggressive defense because they can worry less about opponent free throw percentage. Ooh. That is a really good point, Yawning Tears. You stole it from me, MCMD boy. You stole it from me. You know I had it first. Norman Powell saw that Paul George had 29 earlier, and the game starts against Portland, and Norm, I think, had 14 in the first quarter or something like that. He saw that PG 29. He said, bet. I had it on X. How dare you? This was a really good point, though, from Yawning Tears. I think there is something to that. So we've heard from Brian Shaw in his pregame interviews with Carlo Jimenez. You guys want to see a horse? I'm near the LA Equestrian Center, so this happens a lot. Now they're going to tell me to be quieter so I don't spook the horse, Mr. Ed over here. But Carlo Jimenez pregame has been talking a lot with Brian Shaw on our Clippers Countdown pregame show. And B. Shaw said he doesn't even mind if they get some early fouls in the game, if that means they're setting the tone that they're going to be physical out there. So, yeah, you could get into foul trouble that way, but if teams are missing at the free throw line because of the effect of the Intuit dome of the wall, does it really hurt you that much? So, Yawning Tears, that is a great thought. And I'll be stealing that from you like M7MD boys stole something from me. Kaylee said, I feel like even with Kawhi, the Wolves and the Rockets are tough matchups, but not unbeatable. I got something to say about that. EZO said, I really hope Kawhi isn't rushing this with all the new rumors out. I don't think Kawhi is going to be rushing it. The team won't let him rush things. The team will hold him back as they have been, I think. Trovo said, with Kawhi and Harden at this level, not even fear the Celtics. I don't know if I go that far. Hello Dolo said, damn, I thought he said December. My bad. No. He said relatively soon and second week of November at the latest, it sounded like initially from Law. But that's not criticism on Law. The point is, if Law can't know, nobody can know. It's Kawhi. Yanni Tears said, I hope the team realizes this and goes all out at home, make it a thing. Does anybody have the home road splits for defensive rating with this Clippers team? If anybody has that, I appreciate it, chat. Adam's family. 3 Dozen said, that's something out of Red Dead Redemption. The horse going by. Garrett said, feel like teams are going to try to funnel shots at Derek Jones, but if he continues to play at this level offensively, then it could become scary hours. I love what we've seen from Derek Jones Jr. so far this season. He has exceeded my expectations just like this Clippers team. He's been that good so far. Let me make sure my phone's not going to overheat or something like that. That could become a problem. A little bit warm. All right. I'm going to say I got 20 more minutes at most. So I want to get into this and really go through the Western Conference standings. Not to tell you where the Clippers are going to end up in the standings, but just to see what teams or which teams are playing well and how the Clippers would stack up against them. So let's start from the lower seeded teams to the higher seeded teams right now in the West and just put out the hypothetical. If Kawhi is healthy and available in a 7-game series, and this is Kawhi looking like how he did last season, how would the Clippers match up against this team? Do you think they could beat them? I'll start with, this is one of the possible contenders in the West. The Minnesota Timberwolves. Someone just brought them up just a second ago. Somebody said they still don't like, this was Kaylee, the Wolves and Rockets matchups. I'm not saying I like the matchup, but without Karl Anthony Towns now, without another big body out there, they don't scare me as much as they did last season. And the Clippers went 1-2 against them last season. They won one of the 3 games. It was that 89-88 victory somewhere in there where Norman Powell had that big throwdown at the end, windmill dunk that he probably shouldn't have done in a tight game like that because it almost didn't go in. Guys were like, no, yes, once he made it. As good as Anthony Edwards is, I'm not putting him above a healthy Kawhi in a 7-game series. There's really only one guy in the Western Conference who I think can outperform Kawhi, a healthy Kawhi in a 7-game series, if Kawhi is moving the same way he was last year, now coming off the inflammation and the knee swelling. That's the hypothetical here. If you're getting the same version of Kawhi from last season with this Clippers team, with this roster, what can they do in the West and where do they stack up? That's what we're talking about here. So, against Minnesota, because they lost Karl Anthony Towns, who also stretches the floor on the other end and opens up driving lanes for Anthony Edwards, I think at this point, it's safe to say they got a little bit worse. I don't think significantly worse, but a little bit worse with their high-end talent. Because look at it this way. As much as people were hating on Karl Anthony Towns and his lack of performances in big games going into the playoffs last season, guess what? They have no shot in that series against Denver in the second round without Cat. Cat guarded Jokic a lot. He played really well. They don't win that series without him. That's how they got to the Western Conference Finals. And that guy is in New York now. You bring in Dante DiVincenzo. You bring in Julius Randle, who typically has struggled over the years in the playoffs. Let me just pull up the numbers when he was with the Knicks, because he had some really bad playoff performances after some really good regular seasons with them, and that kind of got the Knicks fan base to sour on him some, understandably. He just wasn't the same guy when the bright lights were on. I mean, bad playoff performances. In 2021, in the first round, where they lost to Atlanta, that was the Trae Young series where he embraced being the villain, the bad guy. Julius Randle shot 29% from the field. My goodness. That's how bad he was. Now, a couple years later, against the Cleveland Cavaliers, who they did body and win in 5 games against in the first round, Julius Randle was still bad. He shot 33%. Make it 34% from the field. Ugly numbers here. And then in the second round, he shot 41% as they would lose to Miami in 6. That's his playoff experience. Those 3 series, that's it. He is a career 34% shooter in the playoffs in 3 series. I don't trust that guy. I'd much rather have Karl Anthony Towns than him. So, do I fear this team, the Minnesota Timberwolves? Well, they are going to be very good defensively, and they're starting to turn things around there. And they did so against the LA teams. And I expect them to be back to playing top 5 defense, or to having a top 5 defensive rating, I should say. I don't fear them that much. Certainly not as much as I did last season, because the loss of Karl Anthony Towns. I like Dante DiVincenzo a lot, but Julius Randle is a tough fit. Now, could things change? Of course. Things could change December 15th when a lot of guys can be traded at that point. But with the way the team is constructed right now, I like the Clippers' chances against Minnesota in a 7-game series. I just don't think they have enough offensively, and defensively there's going to be some drop-off there. And don't forget about this. Coach Lue against Rudy Gobert, he can scheme him off the floor. The Clippers can go small still. He kind of started that trend, really the Golden State Warriors did in the playoffs, where you could make Rudy Gobert the 4-time Defensive Player of the Year winner. You could make him a liability at times on defense by just pulling him away from the basket. So, Holo Dolo hooked me up. The Clippers' defensive rating is slightly better, and not even slightly. It's decently better at home versus away. So to go back to playing aggressive basketball, and even if you do foul, they're not making free throws at the Intuit Dome, the opposition. I love that point from Yanni Tears. He said a further strategy with this is to take advantage of their depth, spread out the aggressiveness, fouls, so nobody gets in foul trouble. I see what you're saying. With the Clippers' depth, you could still be in business. The offensive rating is nearly identical, home and away. Holo Dolo points that out. 112.2 at home, 112.1 on the road. I agree with them. That's good to see. The Timberwolves, again, not easy, but I'll take the Clippers with a healthy Kawhi Leonard and the version we had last season before the injury over them in a 7-game series. Now, next up, currently in the 9th spot, just ahead of Minnesota in the standings in the Western Conference, the Los Angeles Lakers. The Lakers are a hot mess right now. They are an absolute dumpster fire, and it could get worse later today in Atlanta against the Hawks. If you were able to check out the video with me on AM 570 LA Sports yesterday with Fred Rogan and Jonas Knox, I broke down what's wrong with the Lakers, and it's a lot. But I'll sum it up for you as this, as more horses are going by me here. I'm not going to hold up the computer, though. That might spook them or scare them. And I love animals. Maybe I'll just So, the Lakers went from being a top 5 offense but a bottom 5 defense to that flipping over about a week span. When they tried to fix the defense, then there was slippage on the offensive end. Then you had a bunch of games where LeBron James for 4 straight games couldn't hit 20 points. He looked old. He looked low-washed. Then Anthony Davis, after missing those free throws late against Orlando, where after the Clippers beat him, Orlando beat the Lakers. Since then, he's only averaged 18 points per game. The plantar fasciitis has hurt him. He and LeBron have both been looking old, brittle, and broken down recently. It's affected everything else. And schematically, they look like a mess on both ends, and guys aren't even giving effort out there. Losing that game by 41 the other night was absolutely embarrassing to a Miami Heat team that's all right, but they haven't been great so far. And they hit 24 threes against the Lakers. However, I do think the Lakers match up better in a playoff series because of their top-end talent than they do in a regular season and the grind of a regular season. I'm not going to totally discount them and say that the Clippers would beat them in 5 games with a healthy Kawhi Leonard. I'm not going to say that. It would be a war. LeBron James and Anthony Davis in a 7-game series, and AD is somebody that when he's at his best, you don't really have a guy that can match up with him and stop him. Ivica Zubac has done a solid job over the years, and that's one of the reasons. How many straight games did the Clippers win over the Lakers? Didn't they take their first loss in the Ty Lue era just this past season to the Los Angeles Lakers, who, by the way, they don't play till January? They play all 4 games against the Lakers this season in about the span of a month and a half, which is strange. But that will intensify the rivalry a little bit because they're going to see each other a lot, and those games are typically competitive. But for a while, I'm going to look this up because I want to say the Clippers had won about 11 straight against the Lakers at one point, and a lot of those games weren't that competitive. Some of them, the Reggie Jackson skipping into the front court, that was different. But 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. It was 11 straight that the Clippers had won until last season, where the Lakers ended up winning 3 of the 4 matchups. I think they have been trying to build a team specifically to beat the Clippers. And look, you can say that the Lakers can't guard at all. I understand that. They're not playing good basketball. But I'm going off of a bigger picture here. By the time the playoffs come around, I still think they're going to make moves. And I'm not saying they look like a Western Conference contender right now at all. I'm just not going to completely overlook them either. And they do have some matchup advantages because of Anthony Davis against pretty much anyone, but definitely the Clippers. Am I still taking the Clippers over them with a healthy Kawhi Leonard in a 7-game series? Of course I am. Of course I am. Maddox says, I heard that Kawhi will play December 16th versus the Jazz. From who? Nothing is official. Everybody is just saying, oh, his bobblehead's that night. You know why his bobblehead is coming out that night, guys? Because it's a Christmas-themed bobblehead, and that's the last game they play at home before Christmas. So try to figure out and connect dots with, oh, his bobblehead's coming out then. That must mean he's playing that game. That ain't it. I'm here to tell you that ain't it at all. They have to get that bobblehead out because it's the last home game before Christmas. That just makes sense. It has nothing to do with, oh, that means Kawhi Leonard is going to be back that game. If he is back that game, it's just coincidental. Darius Sanders said, please, Clippers Nation, let's start getting the likes up. Adam is doing an amazing job. I can get with that. Jeremy Mormon said, you don't think Derrick Jones Jr. will put up a good fight against Anthony Davis? No. I don't think Derrick Jones Jr. is going to be guarding Anthony Davis that often. Does anybody think that's the case? AD has 4 to 5 inches on him. There will be possessions that he will guard him, but with AD's size, that's not typically the type of guy that Derrick Jones Jr. guards. He's actually better against the smaller guards than the bigger wings, or in this case, a power forward center. AD's been playing center. Why do you think DJJ would be guarding AD? Bonesaw said no. Jeremy Mormon a little bit out to lunch on that one. The Rio Mikkel said you have to. God, that's just a timeout. Unproductive timeout here. Okay, I got to start moving a little bit faster here because I don't know about my hotspot and how it's going to work. So the Denver Nuggets are 8th currently in the Western Conference. So we'll talk about them next and how they match up against the Clippers in a 7-game series. This is probably the team I worry about most, but it's very much dependent on one thing. Is Jamal Murray going to look like Jamal Murray again? Because he hasn't all season long. Jamal Murray has not looked like that guy. And I don't think he's looked like the 2023 version of Jamal Murray in some time now. The guy that won the championship. It helped sweep the Lakers in the Western Conference Finals. He didn't look right to me playing for Canada this summer. And if he doesn't have that burst, if he doesn't have that ability to gain separation against defenders, they're a different team. Are they still one of the top 2 teams I'm worried about most in a 7-game series against the Clippers with a healthy Kawhi Leonard? Yes. I am concerned about that because Nikola Jokic is that good. Jokic is the one guy that you can make the argument in a 7-game series, even against a healthy Kawhi Leonard, could outplay him. Could be the best player on the court in the Western Conference. He is a 3-time MVP. He may get his 4th this year. He also has a Finals MVP. There's really no argument to me that Jokic is anything less than the best player in the world right now. He's Nikola freaking Jokic. He has the hardware. He has the championship. He has the regular season accolades. He's done it all. Denver might make a move too. Right now, do I like the Clippers' chances? Yeah, they beat them twice without Kawhi. And it seems like James Harden is the Jokic slayer because he's 16-8 head-to-head against Jokic. Now, some of those games against Jokic came when Jokic was still a young pup in this league and James Harden was at his peak. So they're 4-2 so far, though. Since James Harden became a Clipper, they're 4-2 against the Denver Nuggets. In fact, they have won 4 straight. And some of those games, obviously, without Kawhi Leonard. So I like the Clippers' chances, but I don't love them against Denver. I just like them more than how they stacked up against Denver in the past because Jamal Murray doesn't look right. Aaron Gordon just came back. Aaron Gordon, to me, and I've been saying this for years, is probably the best one-on-one defender I've seen against Kawhi Leonard. He's a very good defender in general, but specifically against Kawhi, I think Aaron Gordon plays really good basketball because of his physicality. Kawhi can't bully him. So that's what could tip the scales or bring the advantage back to the Denver Nuggets in a series like this. If he can slow down Kawhi at all, then the Clippers are in big trouble. So that's probably the team that I'm most concerned about in the 7-game series in the Western Conference, but we'll keep going here. Up next, the Phoenix Suns. You know I love how the Clippers match up against them, which is funny to say because they've lost to them 3 times in their history in the playoffs. One of those times was in 2006. It doesn't really matter. One of those times was in 2021 without Kawhi Leonard. Doesn't really matter. One of those times was in 2023, and we saw how dominant Kawhi was the first 2 games. He was the best player on the floor. He'd be the best player on the floor again. Bradley Beal doesn't change that equation. They had KD and Book, and he was ripping the ball away from Kevin Durant, imposing his will. And the difference between those two is really physicality versus finesse, Kawhi versus KD, which is why I always have felt like Kawhi is the better playoff performer between the two and the better overall player between the two. I know KD also has a couple of finals MVPs. He also went to a team that won 73 games and was up 3-1 against him and joined and created the ultimate super team. And I'm not trying to hate here, but those titles don't mean as much to me. It's hard to say they were dealing with that much pressure when you have a team so stacked or too good to fail in those Golden State Warriors teams. Was he the best player in the finals? Yes. There's also a ton of attention, though, going to Steph Curry. Klay Thompson was still in his prime before the knee and the Achilles injury. I'll take Kawhi Leonard in a 7-game series over Kevin Durant. KD just got swept by Minnesota to start the first round last year. I don't think that's happening to Kawhi. The Clippers are too physical for a finesse team, not just a finesse player in KD, but a finesse team in the Phoenix Suns. I think the Clippers could beat them in 5 or 6. With a healthy Kawhi Leonard and the version of Kawhi Leonard we saw last season. G-Master Funkflex said Jokic can't deal with a healthy Kawhi, by the way. Nobody can. Embiid couldn't. Giannis lost, so don't forget. Maybe you forgot. Jokic beat a healthy Kawhi in the bubble. I don't care that it was the bubble. You can't take anything away from Jokic because obviously the bubble wasn't the reason they were good. They've won a championship now outside of the bubble. That was just the start of their ascension. And he's won 3 of the last 4 MVPs. There's no argument for saying that Kawhi has the advantage against Jokic in a 7-game series right now. He doesn't. Jokic has beaten him head-to-head. He's won a more recent championship. He's won 3 regular season MVPs. I'm sorry. It's just fan bias if you're going to say Kawhi Leonard, if healthy, Jokic can't deal with him. They were both healthy in the bubble. I'm sorry. That's not a good argument. and I'm not going to show any fan bias. I'm trying to be objective here and see where the Clippers really stack up against these teams. Do I think they can beat Denver? Yes, because Jamal Murray has not looked the same. Here's what's funny about this, G-Master Funk Flex. You have to care. Nobody wanted to be there except LBJ and Jokic. Really? So did the Clippers only care when they were up 3-1 in that series to the Denver Nuggets? I'm going to keep it real. You're telling me once they were up 3-1, they stopped caring? Seemed like they cared when they were up 3-1 against Denver. That's a really bad excuse. I'm not going to play that game. That, it doesn't count. It's just bubble ring. Is it the same as any other NBA ring? No. But it sure looked like the Clippers cared when they were up 3-1. I'm not hearing that excuse, guys. I'm sorry. I'm a Clippers fan too, but I'm not going to discredit guys because it's just nonsensical. They cared up until they were up 3-1, then they stopped caring. Sure. That's a weak argument. And yes, you all wouldn't be discounting it if the Clippers had won it. Now, would everyone else discount it? Of course, which is what happened to the Lakers. Would you have to back it up and validate it by winning the next season? Yes. If the Clippers' only championship came in the bubble, in the most unique circumstances ever, nobody would give them credit. They don't even give the Lakers credit when they already had 16 championships. G-Master's saying Nuggets can't do this again. It's not about Murray. It's the roster. They lost their team. It is about Murray. Then it's about the rest of the roster with KCP and Bruce Brown being out. I'm not saying Kawhi does not own Aaron Gordon. That is not true. Guys, talking about what he did to Aaron Gordon when he was in Orlando, that is a different Aaron Gordon to the glue connector Aaron Gordon that has leaned into defense with the Denver Nuggets. Trust me, Aaron Gordon is one of the best defenders, if not the best defender in the league. I've watched all their matchups against Kawhi Leonard. Y'all are stuck in the fan stuff right now. I'm trying to be objective and honest. So, how was that about the Phoenix Suns? I think the Clippers match up really well against them. They don't fear me with a healthy Kawhi Leonard. I like that matchup. Against the Golden State Warriors, this is interesting. They're next. They're right in front of the Clippers right now at the 5 spot in the Western Conference. Golden State. They're 13-8, and the Clippers have beaten them twice already without Kawhi. I think I feel good about this matchup. The problem with Golden State is, in the playoffs, they don't have enough shot creators outside of Steph Curry right now. That's why they were trying to get Paul George. That's why they were trying to get Markkanen. They don't have enough guys that can go out there and be self-creators and not have to rely on others to get them the ball in their spots or to be catch-and-shoot guys. Golden State doesn't have enough top-end talent next to Steph Curry. They don't. And now you've seen them scuffle a little bit, and Steph Curry came out recently and said, yeah, maybe we have to shorten the rotation. Oh, that 12, 13-man rotation that everybody was talking about being so great and it's going to save legs during the regular season. Well, guess what? There's another side to that. Guys don't know how many minutes they're getting per night, and it's hard to stay in rhythm when you're playing that many guys. And that's what Steph Curry was alluding to. So there's a downside to that. I don't fear the Golden State Warriors as constructed. If they go out there and still make a move, which they might, considering they tried to this past summer, that could change things. But right now, yeah, Garrett said this. It totally depends on what Golden State does trade-wise. If they get a Levine type, they scare me a lot more. As currently constructed, Clips in 5. Yeah, Clips in 5 or 6 against Golden State with a healthy Kawhi Leonard. We'll get to OKC. Hello Dolo said, okay, he's bringing up teams too. We'll get to them. I think they're a one and done, depending on the matchup. Like, if they drew the right matchup, they could get out of the first round. But I don't like this Golden State Warriors team in a playoff series. I'm not big on them. That's fine, G-Master, but your points about the bubble and the Clippers not caring, I decimated those. They cared when they were up 3-1. And then you play we didn't really care after they lost that series. Oh, they cared when they were up 3-1. We're not starting that. We're not doing that. You gotta own your failures. You do. Lawrence Frank said this after the bubble. You gotta own it. You can't just write that off as, it didn't matter. They didn't care. So why were they up 3-1? Seemed like they cared then. All right. Moving on up to the Memphis Grizzlies now. I told you before the season, Memphis is back in play. They got healthy. They're getting healthier now. And they're 8-2 their last 10 games. The Memphis Grizzlies are playing much better. I expected them to be in the hunt for a top 4 seed because that's where they had been the 2 years where they were healthy. They lost to the Lakers in the first round in that 2-7 matchup. But they have been a top 2, top 3 seed when healthy with Ja. They're tough. And Ja Morant in the past scared me a lot more before the Clippers got Derrick Jones Jr. and Chris Dunn. Now I like the way, with a healthy Kawhi Leonard, that the Clippers could match up against the Memphis Grizzlies. Triple J's tough. Desmond Bane's tough. They got a good squad. I'm not discrediting them. But if you slow down Ja Morant, you slow down the Memphis Grizzlies. It's that simple. And the Clippers actually have the point of attack defenders now to do so. They didn't in the past. I feel much better about the way they match up against Memphis in a 7-game series with a healthy Kawhi. I'm taking the Clippers in 5 or 6 games over them. Aldama's been playing well too. They got Jalen Wells. They're deep. Zach Edey, he can throw a wrench into your plans a little bit. Scottie Pippen Jr. has been good. I mean, they're really deep. They got Marcus Smart. I'm saying Clippers in 6 against the Memphis Grizzlies. Clippers in 6. Yanni Tier said, Memphis scares me a bit for sure. Edey hasn't really come online much yet. So now, instead of the Clippers didn't care, G-Master is saying we lost because Doc Rivers was the head coach and PG is a choker. That's it. So you've already shifted the argument. First you said they lost because they didn't care. Then you're like, Kawhi can't do it by himself. Do you want to check out the numbers Kawhi had in that Game 7 where the Clippers led by 12? Let's review. Did they care when they were up 16 points in Game 5? Or when they were up 19 points on Denver in Game 6? Or when they were up 12 points on Denver in Game 7? So they cared then, and then they just stopped caring mid-game. G-Master Funkflex has no argument here. None whatsoever, and he keeps shifting out of it. We're not going to do this thing where we rewrite history and just act like the Clippers only lost in the bubble because they didn't care. If you want to talk Doc Rivers mistakes, sure. But that's not the way you started talking about this, G-Master. Axie said, Dunn and Derrick Jones Jr. are our wing stop. That Mexican Nara said, Jaws is a tough matchup. Yes, but they have 2 guys that aren't Kawhi and Paul George now that you can throw at Ja Morant that can just go out there and play great defense against him and slow him down and make life tough. And if you slow him down, you slow down Memphis. They will be walking in Memphis. All right. Who else do we got here next? So far, there's one team that really scares me if Jamal Murray is right with the Denver Nuggets because Jokic is just that good. And I do need to hurry up here before my phone or my computer dies. The team in front of Memphis in the standings right now, the Dallas Mavericks, they're 9-1 their last 10 games, just like that. Dallas 15-8. They're in the 3 spot in the West. Familiar with the Dallas Mavericks. I still feel like even though they got Klay Thompson, in a 7-game series, that's one more guy to start to hunt out on defense. Not that he's a horrible defender, but Klay Thompson before the Achilles, before the ACL, he was, I think, one of the preeminent perimeter defenders in the modern NBA. Klay Thompson was that good. He was fantastic. So, does Dallas have more holes now with Klay, but without Derrick Jones Jr., who locked up Paul George in the first round series this past year? I'm going to say this. If the Clippers had Kawhi in place of Paul George healthy this past season, they win in 5 or 6 games over Dallas. Terrence Mann was doing a great job on Luka Doncic. Luka shot under 40% from the field against Terrence Mann in that series. The defense was good enough. It's the Clippers' offense that struggled so much. Paul George only attempted, I think, 15.8 shots per game. That's not enough. Kawhi would get it more than that. Kawhi would have won that series for them against Dallas. And I'm thinking the Mavericks, they're about the same as where they were last season, and a lot of things broke their way to get to the NBA Finals. But again, they don't even get out of the first round, I think, if the Clippers had Kawhi Leonard. Even if they don't have Paul George. Replace Paul George and say you have a healthy Kawhi Leonard with James Harden, they're winning that series. Kyrie sometimes is a playoff riser. You can go look at the numbers over the last 5 rounds or so he's been in the playoffs. They haven't been as good. He had a decent series against the Clippers, but he had some bad playoff series last year too, especially the NBA Finals. So a lot of his playoff numbers since he left LeBron with Kyrie have been very spotty. Go look him up, that Mexican Nar. The efficiency has not been there. The Rio Mikel said Zach Edey is better than Yao Ming, I'm convinced. Hell no. You don't even remember Yao Ming then. He's not even close yet. Amin said, imagine if Kawhi goes back to 2021 playoff mode Kawhi if we happen to face Dallas again. Yeah. I'm not worried about Dallas if you have a healthy Kawhi. That's what this thought experiment is about. If you have last year's version of Kawhi in a 7-game series, what can the Clippers do in the West? So Dallas, they're solid, but I would take the Clippers in 6 games. I would. I feel good about that matchup. Here's one that people worry about. The Houston Rockets. And I'm here to tell you, I'm not as worried in a 7-game series against Houston. Part of the reason Houston has the number 2 spot in the West right now is because of their depth. And depth in a playoff series doesn't mean as much when you're typically only playing 8 guys. Who are the top 2 guys in that series between the Clippers and the Houston Rockets? I'll tell you who the 2 best guys are. Kawhi and James Harden. The Clippers would have the 2 best guys out of the 24 in that series. They're winning that series. Houston's defense is legit. They can slow you down. But I'm taking my chances with Kawhi against Jalen Green, Şengün, Dylan Brooks, Thompson, the Terror Twins. I am. If you have the 2 best guys in a playoff series, you should win that series. I don't care how good defensively Houston is. The Clippers are very good on that end too. I don't care how athletic they are. The Clippers are going to be able to get more of those tough shots to fall than Houston will be able to. I fully believe that in a 7-game series. Now, would this age poorly if the Clippers got waxed again by Houston on Sunday? Sure. But like Amin said, they don't have much playoff experience. They brought in Dylan Brooks and Fred VanVleet for that. But they don't have enough top-end talent. They don't. They have a good enough head coach. Maybe it goes 6 games. But if the Clippers have a healthy Kawhi, I think they have the 2 top players in that series. I still think James Harden in a playoff series is probably better than Alperen Şengün, who would be the 3rd best player in that series. We haven't seen Houston in the playoffs since James Harden left. We have no idea what they would look like. Some of these guys would be challenged in ways they haven't seen before. Defensive looks that they haven't gone up against because they haven't been in a 7-game series. It's different. I'm not saying they're pushovers, but it's kind of a rule of thumb. If you got the top 2 guys in a playoff series, you should win that series. And I think the Clippers have them. I don't know the distance between James Harden and Şengün, but it's because Şengün hasn't been there yet. So they do have an experienced head coach. Ime Udoka is a really good head coach. But the talent is more important. The experience is more important. And that top-end talent will pull the Clippers through, I think. I do. I'm not saying it would be a sweep, but I think a lot of the advantages Houston has in the regular season go away in a 7-game series. No disrespect. It's going to be a tough game Sunday night. I expect the Clippers to play much better. The final team in the West here, guys, to talk about is, of course, the OKC Thunder. They have the fewest flaws out of every team. But they're missing Chet Holmgren right now. What's he going to look like when he comes back? Is Chet going to be right? Does anybody have a prognosis or an injury report on when Chet Holmgren Park is supposed to return? It was strange. Not something you see very often. I think he's out for maybe another month and a half at least. Maybe longer. We just don't know what the diagnosis can be. It's a kind of unique injury. If they get Chet back fully healthy, let's go from that premise. Because we're already saying Kawhi's healthy, ready to go, 7-game series in the version of Kawhi we saw last season. That's what the Clippers have. I still think the Clippers have a real shot. And it's because of the experience factor and the guys that they can throw at SGA. I'm not saying it's to the extent of what I said about Memphis. You slow down Ja Morant, you slow down OKC, but there is something there. OKC has more guys. They got J-Dub. And they have a really deep team with a lot of good defenders. And it's going to be a grind. And if the Clippers win, it's probably going to take 6 or 7 games. Probably 7. But man, would I love to see a motivated Kawhi with all the subplots between those two teams because of the SGA trade and Kawhi going up against Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. That would be fun. My favorite moment of the season last year was that game they won at Crypto over OKC, both teams healthy, and Kawhi had the big block on SGA at the end. I think the Clippers would have a chance against OKC, who on paper is the best team in the West. But the Clippers have guys to guard SGA. And they have the experience factor. SGA has been to the playoffs 3 times in his career. The first year with the Clippers, obviously not one of the main guys, still young, although had the pass to Shamet for the 3-pointer in Game 2 in the 31-point comeback. He went his first year in OKC with CP3. He still wasn't the guy yet. And then last year he was the guy, and he played well. He made a mistake in that, was it the Game 6 loss, the series-ending game against Dallas in the second round, where he fouled on a 3, I want to say. But, yes, Isaiah Hartenstein changes the equation completely. Because the biggest flaw that OKC had, and the reason I say they have the fewest flaws in the West, is because they shored that up by getting Isaiah Hartenstein in, because you could out-rebound them last season. That was their problem. Now they have Hart. It's another subplot, former Clipper. The Clippers wouldn't be favored, But this whole hypothetical is about if they have a healthy Kawhi with this roster, what happens to the West in a 7-game series. And against OKC, I'm still giving them a shot. I think they could pull it off. If Kawhi is right and looking like last year's version of Kawhi before he went out. I do. Kawhi's that good. It's conceivable he's the best player in the series, even against SGA. And the Clippers' defense is good enough, and the Clippers just have more tough shot makers, where there's going to end up being a lot of ISO ball in a 7-game series. People always forget about this. Oh, why do we play so much ISO ball? It's like, you ever watch playoff ball? As the series goes along, there aren't any new wrinkles and plays you can run. It comes down to our best versus your best. And the Clippers have the top 2 guys last season in points per possession in isolation were number 1, Kawhi, number 2, James Harden. I'll take my chances with that crew. With the defenders they have and Norman Powell, we're getting a different version of Norman Powell than they had last season. A lot of it's just opportunity, but it's Denver and OKC. Yes, those are the 2 biggest threats to the Clippers in a 7-game series with a healthy Kawhi. And as I think about it more, I don't know which team scares me more. Probably Denver, but it's really close, only because of the Jokic factor, which is a pretty big one. Probably Denver, but I don't know. It depends on how OKC is playing and what Chet looks like when he comes back. It's just a long recovery process for him. So they're still number 1 in the West right now, by the way. Even with him being out, Isaiah Hartenstein was out to start the season. It shows their depth. I think OKC scares me slightly more than Denver right now. But they're both scary. But I still give the Clippers a shot against either of them. With this squad next to a healthy Kawhi. Holodillo said, I know they got that Mexican R. They got Alex Caruso and Lou Dort to slow down James Harden. It scares me. Holodillo said, with OKC, I feel like we can deal with the Hartenstein lineups. It's Chet's of the worlds that we struggle with, I feel like. That stretch 5 that allows the team to play 5 out on offense like Boston. Yeah, it's not a bad point. It's not a bad point. They're going to play both of them at times when Chet comes back. Master of the Keys says Houston owns the Clippers. I'm not that worried about Houston in a 7-game series. You got to understand the difference between playoff ball and regular season ball. The Clippers will have the 2 best players in that series, Kawhi and James Harden. Houston is completely unproven. Because they won 2 regular season games so far this season where the Clippers haven't had Kawhi, they're athletic. They have a good defense. They have a good head coach. They don't have enough of the high-end talent in a 7-game series. I don't believe. I'm not trying to discredit them. I don't think the Clippers would take them out in a sweep or anything like that. But I would take the Clippers over them. It's OKC, it's Denver. Those are the 2 teams that could beat the Clippers in a 7-game series, in my opinion. Outside of that, I think we'd be pretty confident. And those 2 could be a coin flip. Who knows? If Kawhi is healthy. That's the premise here. Please, Claw, get back healthy. I just thought it'd be fun to go over it since we've mentioned it. We've touched upon it, but we haven't gone that in depth on how the Clippers could stack up against the rest of the West in a 7-game series with a healthy Kawhi. I have said I don't fear many with a healthy Kawhi. Now you kind of know more of the reasons why. Alfie said, Houston reminds me of the Utah Jazz in 2021. We taken them out in 6. Amin said, Houston doesn't have the experience. That's why we're not worried about them. Master of the Keys, who just said Houston owns the Clippers, said, what trade would you like to see happen, Adam? Name some players. You name the players, and I'll tell you if it could happen. How about that? Hello Dolo said, it's hard to evaluate how we match up with the top teams without seeing the team with Kawhi. We could genuinely be the best defense with Kawhi. We don't know. That's what I'm saying. On paper, they have some of the best, most switchable guys out there that can guard on the perimeter, which helps out your backline defense so much. I also think there can be a small ball lineup with Kawhi at the 5 that can be really dangerous for them. Amin said, what would be a good finals matchup if we get there with a healthy Kawhi? Not Boston. I don't like the matchup against Cleveland either. New York, Milwaukee, Philly. I don't love a lot of those. That's why I'm not even willing to touch the NBA Finals matchups yet because, first of all, Boston is, I think, far and away the best team. They have unsolvable problems for you. I do fear the Boston Celtics. Some of that is just, can we get lucky and they miss some shots? And that's not a great mindset to have going into a series where you just have to rely on some of the averages going for you and against them because there's not a lot you can do. Someone else said Bucks here. Yeah, I wouldn't hate that. The Clippers have owned Dame, and I've seen what Kawhi can do against Giannis. Now, that was 5 years ago now. We'll be 6 by 2025. But pick your poison type thing. And should the Clippers be lucky enough to get there, beggars can't be choosers. Amin said, Boston has guys like JT, JB, Drew, and great defenders to throw at Kawhi and Harden. They have all the switchability you could ask for, all the versatility defensively, and those guys can all shoot. That's basically what the Clippers were building in 2021 when I think they had the real game plan on doing this. The Golden State did, of course, with their def lineup back when Draymond could shoot a little bit. But, yeah. The enemy of my enemy is my friend, says Axie. Hello Dolo said, if Boston gets hot like they did the last game against us, no team is beating that. Nope. That's just the uncomfortable truth people got to deal with. Completely agree. Alfie said, as long as we have a healthy Kawhi, Harden, and Norm, we got a chance with anyone. Not if Boston's hot. Amin said, oh, low battery, guys. I got to go. Peace out. Tomorrow, we will have on Lauren Rosen, your newest Clippers courtside reporter. She's coming on the show. We'll talk to you guys then.